What up, everybody? Welcome to the IAG Thursday Thing, this thing that we do every Thursday. You know what? One of these days, somebody's going to go, dude, why do you do that to open the show every week? It is driving me up the wall. And I'm going to go, why not? But either way, welcome to the IAG Thursday Thing, this thing that we do every Thursday where we, hang out, learn some stuff, chat about some topics, catch up with each other, talk about the doings within the Subaru community. Actually, there was something really I need to add that now that I'm thinking about it. We will talk about that too. So we will chat in the news and then we will go into the topic. But I am joined once again by my co-host and partner in crime and man who keeps me on some sort of sane track and just keeps the world going. Warranty, how you doing, sir?
I am doing great. I have good news for you.
I
have found a reliable connect, and it's not for drugs. What is it, you might ask? It's for RC Cola. I will always have RC Cola ready for you next time we get pizza in Chicago.
No shit.
Yeah, there's a
so you guys don't understand.
If
I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're eating pizza and not drinking RC Cola with it, you ain't living. Okay? You ain't living.
That's right. It's hard to find.
It is. RC Cola is hard to find.
So there's a sub shop down the way that's got it on the drink tower, but more importantly, they've got cans for sale.
Oh, nice. So next time we do proper pizza, we can do proper cola also. I love it.
Perfect.
All right. Also in the background, we've got producer Jordan kind of steering the ship from the back, and what would we do without him? I love producer Jordan. And then Randy, he's always around to help us with thumbnails and anything else that we may need as far as graphics and things of that nature. So that's your team. This is how we put this together. And yeah, we're gonna do the damn thing. First off, it has been hot. Today it finally broke, but oh my god, has it been nasty hot the past couple of weeks. Not only from a temperature standpoint, but a political standpoint. It got so nasty, it got violent. Obviously, nobody here condones political violence, which is not cool, but just a sign of the times, I guess, which kind of sucks. But yeah, that was ugly. Did the temperature finally break near you?
It is. It's 73 today. Yeah, yesterday was 80.
Oh man, that's gorgeous. It's a little over 80 here, and I'm eating it right up. I know the guys at IAG, in the shop, like in shop temperature was over 100.
Oh my gosh, that was awful.
Awful. It was just awful. Those guys were all dying, and Dylan's over there just slaving on the damn car. I know Fred was slaving on the car, but who I really feel bad for was Pat, our sales manager, and he's got a lot of other stuff, and I'm sure there's a bunch of other guys there helping him too. So please don't. I'm not trying to discount anybody else. I talk to Pat a lot, but they were having to set this trailer up for a Bronco event they're at today. And they were having to fill the trailer, and it was like, I guess they measured the air temperature in there. It was like 123 degrees.
Oh my gosh.
It was just unreal. Awful. It's unreal.
We're not built for that.
No, humans are not built for that, period. It's awful. Holy crap. I see Kanakri out there. Look at that. Blessing us with his...
Only the best.
Only the best. So, yeah. It's been hot, but thankfully it's starting to cool down. Boogie's got some new and fun stuff coming together. We think we may have solved the bouncing issue, which is super cool.
Good. What was it?
Maybe some improper suspension setup, maybe kind of due to me doing some stuff not exactly properly, and we kind of did some stuff in a hurry, and I was kind of tired when I did it, and it kind of probably wasn't very right.
So was the differential okay?
The diff was fine. We pulled it all apart, took a look at it. Looks fine.
Oh, wow. Well, that's good news.
Yes. So we decided not to screw with the diff. We really need to figure out what the actual problem was, and we sent coilovers over to Fortune, and they did a quick refresh on them and shot them back to us. And during reinstall, we were going about stuff. We could actually take our time and do it right, and learn some things about the way we had some stuff set up, and we are going to be in a much better place.
Oh, fantastic.
Maybe we'll talk about that at a different time, but
yeah, that's
not
what we're talking
about now. It is a good idea. I think it's a great idea.
Everybody rushes, right? And if you're rushing and you're making this mistake, other people are going to do it too. And you're the fortune guy.
For sure. It's not a big deal, but we'll figure it out. Okay. Other news. Did you see today that Cobb released tuning for the newer Outbacks to include the Wilderness Edition?
Yes, I did. It was only 22 and 20 to 2022. So
still, that's a thing. I actually got a phone call this morning about one, and I'm like, sorry, man, it's not available. And then, like later on in the day, I see that.
Nice.
So I kind of feel dirtbaggy about that guy. Hopefully he calls back. But yeah, I think that's cool. I'm happy to see that Cobb is messing with some of the more oddball Subarus, because there's a lot of enthusiasts out there messing with those, and they're looking for things they can do to it. And I mean, you can't do anything until you can tune it.
Right. Crack open the ECU. Now, this is all green speed, right? So these are all off-the-shelf tunes that are 50 state legal, including California.
But it's going to open it up for Race Tuner, too, so they can mess with some certain things. Don't get me wrong, but it's still all got to stay green speed. But yeah, they're off-the-shelf tunes. Just they're like Stage 0 or whatever. They're basic only. If you have no other modifications done to the car whatsoever and just put that tune on, it helps. Logging. You will immediately notice that in throttle response. So that's super cool.
Yep. Yeah, Stage 0 is just for monitoring, so you could get the access board to show you stats. But then Stage 1 is their off-the-shelf.
There you go. Fine. Stage 1. Stage 1.
Yeah.
All right. In other news.
Well, let's hold on to that for just 1 second.
Okay.
The fact that Cobb made all their off-the-shelf tunes green speed is pretty cool. I remember when that started becoming a thing. They kind of have to,
my dude.
I know, but still, it's one thing to be forced to do it. It's another thing to have it done. So remember, there was a short period of time where I thought Cobb was just going to become a carbon parts supplier because they were kind of in a bad spot, and then snap their fingers and they're the cool kids again.
Well, there is also some very, very large implications from Chevron getting repealed. That's another topic.
Oh, I'm very looking forward to talking about that.
That's a spicy one that I think we need to maybe bring in some people who are a little smarter than us for that. And I haven't figured out who we're bringing in for that one, but we're going to have to really mind our P's and Q's on how we even talk about that.
Okay.
But what I can tell you is that was massive for the future of any sort of, well, not just the automotive aftermarket, but any sort of agency within the government, essentially just interpreting the law how they deem fit.
Right.
Or being able to write their own laws and it not being passed through Congress. So, everything that they do now has to be passed through Congress when they change the law.
Yeah. There's passionate opinions on both sides of this topic, and I actually have one that's in support of the repeal that I need to read for work. So, yeah, okay. I'm very looking forward to talking about that. That is a discussion for another argument.
This is huge.
Wow.
And I can't stress to you how this basically essentially made the RPM Act go through without having to even vote on it.
Oh, wow.
It is that big of a deal.
Saved $1 billion industry, so that's can't be mad about that.
It did more. It did a lot. No, I'm not saying that stuff can't come through later on, but
sure.
I can tell you a whole lot of shit's going to come right to a screeching halt real fast. Unless there is a direct rule written about it, there is no longer a rule written about it.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Cool.
Which is cool. All right. Now let's get into some more fun stuff. Dude, let's talk about Goodwood Festival of Speed. Goodwood went down. If you guys don't know what Goodwood is, it's basically a bunch of rich people bring out their really, really expensive rare cars and race cars and all sorts of stuff and rip up this dude's hill in the UK in his backyard, his sweet paved hill, and he's also got a like a rally course that they set up, and it has grown into this monstrous thing. Subaru USA is really big on bringing out some of their more premier vehicles. A lot of auto manufacturers have, especially like exotic auto manufacturers, have kind of started um debuting cars and stuff at this event. Like it's really turned into a big thing. Okay. But it's Subaru brought out, they were going to debut Project Midnight there. I mean, we saw what it was before they brought it out, but that was the first time it was going to get used. And they also had the Huckster there being piloted by Travis Pastrana. And honestly, for their debut, I think it went pretty damn well. I don't know. Did you get to watch it all?
I did, yeah. I watched the shootout, saw Project Midnight, saw Travis crash the Huckster. Oh my gosh, I feel bad for him.
So yeah, let's get into that. So they both Travis and Scott Speed in their respective cars were doing really well. Okay, they were near the top or at the top of the leaderboard for all the practice sessions going into it. But there was this lunacy Ford electric van thing that was there too. Honestly, if you think about it, would be about purpose built for an event like this because it's not a very long course.
Right.
So for an electric vehicle, it can just expel all its energy within that time period. It isn't like it has to run very long, and the speeds aren't exactly crazy high.
It's a cool piece of tech. It's a cool looking car.
Oh,
too.
it totally is. Like again, I'm not super excited about it, just because like that sort of electric vehicles really just don't get my heart moving. They just don't. But.
That's fair.
It's super cool. There's a lot of great engineering behind it, and that I can always appreciate. But as far as like internal combustion vehicles, the Subarus were right there at the top and not far off of that crazy thing. And going into the actual last timed session, Travis, who qualified behind Scott Speed, went first. Looked like he turned into a corner slightly too early, and then there were others that were having some traction issues there themselves. There was another like Group C car that ate it there too earlier in the day.
Yeah,
it looked like that corner
crashes.
Was right in that same area too. It looked like it was just obnoxiously slippery in that area. But either way, it looked like he turned in a little too early, got more grip than he thought he was going to get, and then had to correct, so he unwound the wheel, then wound it back up again, and then went into terminal understeer, and unfortunately biffed the Huckster into some hay bales. Looks like the front end's pretty goofed up, but I'm sure those cats will get it sorted out, no problem.
Oh yeah, that's a cool car. That's not going out anytime soon, I bet.
I'm sure they'll get that figured out, and that gives if the composites guys from VSC are listening again, sorry you got extra work to do, but I mean, well, that's job security, right? So they're probably hammering away on that right now, which is unfortunate because it took Travis out, and more than likely they would have both podiumed.
Yeah.
And then a really young kid in a Porsche Cup car ended up getting third, and then Scott Speed in the new Project Midnight car got second, and behind that crazy ass Ford electric van. And for a debut, that I think was pretty phenomenal, especially considering that he was definitely down on power and displacement versus the Huckster. That car is pretty damn sorted. But some takeaways I had from that, and now I'm left almost with more questions than answers. Is I was really thinking that car was going to be a time attack car. And maybe it still is going to be, but as it sits right now, man, that car is really, really it's very soft. Like it has got a lot of like you see how much the weight transfers around going into braking and everything else. Now, this may be
Yeah.
by design. Um, as you can see by the way the arrow is set up, now that we've got some better looks at it, they're not really focusing on underbody arrow very much. And I think there's more of an emphasis on the air going over it. And I'm wondering if getting the car to pitch so far forward under braking is maybe helping it with braking as a part of its the theory behind that design. But that car is still, like, compared to even say something like Boogie, is pretty soft. It pitches quite a bit. And underbody aero is extraordinarily pitch sensitive. So there's a lot of people looking at the front quote unquote splitter, which is really just an air dam that sticks out really far, and trying to come up with theories on how it works. But it's an air dam is what that is. And it's I don't think they really did a lot of I don't think they're putting a lot of emphasis on air going under the car as much as they are going over the car, but it was really interesting. It was super interesting to see how that car operated. It does operate a lot more like maybe like a rally car in tarmac trim versus more like a hardcore circuit based car or a time attack car.
Well, maybe because it's got that like you said, it's got minimal underbody aero, which means what? It's going to be
Well, I mean,
on
we
rough.
haven't seen under this car, so we
True.
could be talking completely out our ass too.
That's
or
true.
maybe this is like phase 1 of the car, or maybe they set it up really soft for this. They have track data from Goodwood. Maybe they're like, we need to set it up like this because it's fast way up the hill. Maybe.
But it has no diffuser, so we can see that. And
Yes.
It's got this weird air dam thing, which you say is inefficient. I'm sure it is. So,
well, it's no, it's not efficient for underbody aero.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Well, its concept is to keep as much air going over the car as it possibly can, aka trying to keep as much air from going under the car instead of a splitter, which the concept is to literally split the air and keep the air that's going under the car at speed or even accelerate it in certain cases. And the air going over the car would then be slowed due to, it having to travel around the area of the car, and that's what's going to create downforce.
Right.
Okay, so with it having a giant front air dam versus a splitter of sorts like you would see in your typical time attack car, a formula car, Australian supercar, you name it, even modern NASCARs. It's just a different animal.
All right, so while we're on this, the car didn't look like it had a ton of body roll. So it's not
I don't think it's got a lot of roll, but it's got a lot of pitch.
Front to back, okay.
Front to back. When it hits the brakes, it rocks forward a lot. When it hits the gas, it rocks back a lot for the type of car it is. If it were to be a time attack car, specifically. Yeah. But again, I'm going to say this one more time. First off, that car is extraordinarily wide. Like, really wide. If you look at a VB chassis and see how wide that already is, and then that's extremely wide-bodied past that, that car is crazy wide.
Yeah.
Okay, so it can, because it's so wide, I think that's, you're not seeing some of the side-to-side roll as much because of how wide it is.
Okay.
Okay, that's but fair. With that stated, it does have a lot of pitch. I bet you it's got some extremely hardcore sway bars and significantly softer springs than we think. This is just a theory.
Okay. Other things I'm noticing from looking at the specs on Vermont Sports Cars website, it's got a smaller fuel cell to the Huckster. Only 25 liters, which is about 6, almost 7 gallons versus 9.
It's meant for short squirts. That's it. Again, what does this sound like?
Why would they go back to the 2-liter though? That's less horsepower, and it's not like it's a lighter weight engine. It's just
I'm not sure on that. Other than we don't really know how the larger displacement engine. I don't know I don't know what they were doing on the inside of it. It could have been just a much larger crank.
Hmm.
Okay, and maybe maybe it's a rod ratio thing. Maybe they're like,
It's
we're gonna
got
put we're gonna put the smaller crank in there, and because this is a bespoke bottom end, maybe they can't mess around with the bore too much.
Yeah, potentially. It's got the same torque rating as the 2.3 in the Huckster and the Air Slayer. It's almost 680 and
Yeah,
near
they're
makes no
probably
difference.
just force fucking it with boost.
And
I would
yeah, and
really like to.
RPMs.
I would love to see these on a dyno and see how they compare. I'm sure there's a reason behind it. It could just be. I mean, I'm going to say this. It could be as simple as we have one of our old 2 liters laying there. Let's throw that in. It could be.
Yeah,
Okay.
potentially. Yeah.
It could be. It could be. We got the damn engine. Just use that one.
I think they're running it to a higher RPM.
They
See.
might be, and if they are, then rod ratio starts making sense. And also, hanging out at high RPM under serious load, that's when rod ratio starts to come into play.
Yeah, I'm surprised because IAG's 2.3 liter does really well at high RPMs, but
Yeah,
perhaps
but
Vermont
how
Sportsman
we
did it
went about
differently.
that, how we went about that is different. Understand?
Yeah,
We took a
yeah,
2.5 liter and put a smaller crank in it.
right.
So their 2.3 liter may be their 2 liter with a larger crank in it. So the
Ah,
bore didn't
stroker.
change. They might
Okay.
have stroked it to 2.3 instead of how we de-stroked it to 2.3. 2.3 just is a displacement number. That doesn't how they got to that displacement.
Right. Same torque figures, but high. Wait a minute. Am I arguing against my own point? So,
Probably.
same torque on both engines, but higher horsepower on the 2.3. So, that's coming from higher torque at lower RPM, I guess?
Yes.
Okay.
AKA it's probably got a bigger crank in it.
Hateful amount of boost in that car.
Yeah, both of them.
Okay. Okay. So, well, it's not going to be an Isle of Man car because it doesn't have a big enough fuel cell. It's
Nope.
going to be a hill climb car, I guess.
I don't think it's even going to be it's not going to be able to go up major hill climbs. You can't do Pikes Peak with that small of a. This is
Fuel cell.
sounding more and more to me like a time attack car.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
It's designed for short. Like, dude, if I only had a 6-gallon tank, I'd have one and a half laps. Like, being real.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So
So,
like,
it's a
I'm
circuit
also on
car.
ethanol. They're probably using some sort of race fuel.
I
Okay,
think it's
so
methanol, maybe. At least it was on
it,
the Air Slayer.
I don't think they're going up Mount Washington with it.
No.
Well, that
Okay.
was one of my theories is they built it for Mount Washington.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, Speed Slayer just set as many track records.
Uh,
That's my new theory.
I truly think this thing's going to be at some time attack events. I'm
Oh
more
man,
convinced now than I ever was.
if I have to sign that dollar bill and give it to you, I'm gonna be big mad because that was a big deal when I won that signed dollar from you all those years ago. I still have it in my
Oh
wallet.
man, I want that one back. I want that one.
I'm gonna be
Oh.
real mad, but then really excited.
That would be
Uh,
exciting for everybody. The entire honestly Subarus in general, but the track community should be really stoked about that.
yeah. Well, a good way to make a car consistent, I guess, is don't rely on underbody aero, and that way you don't really have to worry as much about the surface. Or am I thinking
There's
about that
probably
wrong?
some truth to that, but I don't think we've seen the end of the development of that car. That's what I think.
What do you think Gobstopper 2 was making when it ran up the hill at Goodwood in 45 seconds for horsepower?
A lot, probably 800 plus.
Okay, so Subaru got it done at 670, and that's probably
Yeah,
the number rather than a glory run.
yeah. I'm probably, and there's probably some to that.
Yeah, wow,
Um,
okay, so then that's just to kick it off the trailer, run a lap, go home and do it 10 more times and just do a circus. Go to Willow Springs, go to Laguna Seca, go to Gingerman, better go to Gingerman.
I'm telling you, I
The
want to
Cuba
see him.
circuit of the Midwest.
Oh man, I would love to see that car lap Gingerman. It would be. I want to see it leave turn 10. I want to see what Scott Speed in that car can do leaving turn 10. Like all off camber and crazy. Like dude, it's gonna be just wacky seeing him pull out of turn 10 for everything it's
What do
worth.
you blow into turn 10? What speed are you running in
Yes.
Boogeyman?
I don't know. I
All
ain't
of
even
it.
thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm buried in fourth, I can tell you that.
Okay, so 100 plus,
Oh,
and he's
yeah,
not going to
I'm
slow down
screaming.
because
I'm
he's
hair
got
on fire.
stupid amounts of aero.
Yeah,
Man.
and they've got tires that can actually slow the shit down too.
Yep. I could see
No,
Scott Speed just crushing the Gingerman door slammer record.
I don't see that.
Really? Not even.
And my reasoning for that is I don't think the car is going to make enough aero to where it's going to be able to go through things like 5 through 10,
Mid-speed
through
corners?
2. Yeah, these mid-speed high downforce corners. 9's going to be the big one. That 789 complex, that
Yeah.
car is going to get crooked where giant Hoosiers with a Corvette on, and on with really serious downforce, with like literally like 2,500 pounds of downforce.
They could be
Um,
doing that. They could totally be doing that. I mean, we're talking about one
they're not
guy.
making 2,500 pounds of downforce in that car though.
You don't
They're
think
just
so?
not. No, not without using the underside of that car. There's just no way. Now,
Okay.
I do believe they'd go out there and annihilate the all-wheel drive record.
Well, okay. Well, that's not the same. That's not as cool.
I'm with you, but that's one of those things that you better come correct. And I don't think that car's set up for it yet. But I don't think it'd be hard for them to set it up for it.
Do you think they would just plug in a diffuser and make a better, splitter or whatever, and then
I don't think they'd
be off
have to
the
do
races?
much. I really don't think they'd have to do much. I think some slight rethinking of the front end of that car, and it would be there.
And they've got the gearing, because if they're going to 9,500 RPM like you do, you don't have to shift as much in some of these weird complexes.
Well, they've got some real short, like rallycross style gearing but I'm sure they have the ability to get gear sets and whatever. I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal for them either.
Okay. So I'm getting more excited.
I'm stoked to see what they do. I don't think it would be hard for them to. And again, I could be so off on this. Like, I want to throw this out there. I like, this is why I want somebody from VSC to come on, and they don't have to tell me. They just have to tell me if I'm like close. You know what I mean? Like,
over under, yeah.
Yeah, or like I don't need to know everything. If they want to keep some of their stuff to themselves, I get it. That's fine. But I'm really interested to know. Again, the more the more I follow this car, the more I'm starting to think it's a time attack car. Even though I may not agree with some of the ways they've went about it, I'm sure they have their reasoning, and those are very smart people over there. Very smart people over there.
Putting my corporate hat on for a second, I went back to watch the Scott Speed Rallycross car video at Tail of the Dragon.
Sure.
It's not an interesting video. It's just a bunch of fast cuts. You don't see anything. Very
That'd be
pretty.
such a hard video to make.
Just give me an onboard and just tell people, you better not do this in real life. You'll ruin it for everybody. God's honest truth.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, but like, it's a pretty video, but it's boring because it's just fast cuts and the world has moved on.
Yeah, I got to be real. A lot of people they didn't get amped up about that. I think more people got amped up about Lightning Lap than that, just because there's a better story behind it.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's where I think that's what I want to see. I want to see them go create some stories. I want to see them go to war with Ferris.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At like Gingerman or Lime Rock, some of these tracks where they actually have a prayer. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta be real. They're not gonna have a prayer at something like Road America. They just aren't. That car, it ain't gonna happen there. It's just
too
all
much
ridiculous high speed, ridiculous high speeds.
Yeah.
But on some of these shorter tracks, that balance really matters, and how these guys get out of lower speed corners. That's one of the reasons they did so well at Lightning Lap, is because they ran the Patriot or whatever. They ran the full circuit that also has the crazy infield.
Mm-hmm.
And they were making hay on that infield.
the apex speeds were really high.
Yeah.
Like they just didn't slow down. So that's a complete package. They're not just punching a hole in the atmosphere when they hit the straights and just, sandbagging it the rest of the
Hey,
way.
you say whatever you want, man.
Okay.
Hey, time is time. Like,
Okay.
I
Okay.
hate how a lot of people get angry at like, oh, you just made that dude a horsepower. They'll get pissed at Ferris. Oh, he's only running those times
No.
because of his horsepower.
No,
You
no,
know
no.
what?
Certainly not.
It doesn't even matter. Even if that is the only way he was getting it done. He still ran the time.
That's right.
I
And
mean,
he went to Australia as a
hey,
rookie
I'm just saying,
and
he
won.
ran the time. The time is the time.
Yep.
Like, if he completed said circuit in set amount of time, he rates that.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. We have
All
went
right.
way past what we were gonna. I was thinking a 5-minute chat about this.
Dude, we
We
get
went,
passionate. We get heated even when we agree with each other.
and we're like passionately agreeing with each other right now. So okay, as I stated before, I would really, 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 really like to get some cats from VSC on here so we can. I would like to chat more about the technical side of this vehicle instead of like inquiring minds need to know. That's
Yep.
where I'm at.
Nerds.
We nerds want to hear about it. We want to hear about the
Nerds.
nerdy shit about this car. I don't
Nerds
want to
sell
hear about
cars.
nerds are who convince not nerdy
Everybody
people
else.
this is the
Yeah.
right car. Yeah, like you convince 10 nerds, you sell 100 cars.
100% agree. And I've got stats to back that up.
Yep, it's how it
When I had
works.
my STI, I sold so many Subarus. It was great.
I think the guy in the composites department that Randy is talking about in the chat right now is who listens to this podcast. And played it a couple weeks ago when we were talking about this car. So I hope this makes it out there.
Cool
So
stuff. All right.
now we're gonna get
Piece of
into the more community oriented stuff, not
local
the
news.
passionately arguing
Yeah.
and agreeing. Okay.
Okay.
So this actually came about this week where I had a phone call where somebody was looking for a strut tower bar and they were so adamant about, this car handles so much better with a strut tower bar on than off, and it was a 15 plus STI. It was a VA, and just totally convinced that. And where this comes, how we ended up in this discussion is they wanted to know what strut tower bar to run using our air oil separator, and there's only a few that clear. Some of them you need a little work to do. The Cusco being one that for the most part clears. Some of them do, some of them don't. But strut tower bars in general, we will get into that. But a lot of people, I got to be real. Like I'm just gonna start out this one real fast. Strut tower bars from anything GR and on. If you feel how much it's making your car handle better, it's entirely placebo. I especially in the front. The rear, if you have a hatch and it is braced in 3 points. Okay, so like the old school Cusco bars, you could get the bottom piece that would for the wagons that would brace it in 3 parts. Or there was this thing called the X brace for a long time. Those actually do have a pretty those work, okay? But for the GR and on a strut, like upper strut tower bar, if you're purchasing that for anything other than like aesthetic reasons, you're kind of wasting your money. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to tell you how to build your car. If you really like the way a strut tower bar looks, sick, okay? And there, I've also seen a strut tower bar that also implemented and I don't remember who made this, but it implemented a brake master cylinder brace. I thought that was pretty cool. There might be something to that. But a strut tower bar for the most part is going to be something that you want, not something you need. Okay, and that's what our topic's going to be about today is products that people think they need, but what they actually need is something else. or they haven't admitted to themselves that really what they want it for is bling factor.
This is old information too. Strut tower bars, that was a thing 10 plus years ago. It's not
20 plus
necessary
years ago.
anymore.
Okay.
Oh my gosh,
So
20 years?
okay. So somebody asked a second ago, do I need one for my GD chassis? And the answer is not really. Okay. The GD chassis was also stiff as all hell. But the strut tower was still separate from the firewall. Okay. So it wasn't really getting braced from the firewall at that point. I'm not going to say it's completely pointless for the GD chassis, but it's not doing much. Not only that, braces just in general. If you have a brace that has a like pivot point on each end of it, it's not bracing. Not only that, for a brace to properly work of any sort, it's just like a cage. Everything has to be triangulated, meaning it needs to be braced at 3 points. If you're only bracing at 2, it's not really doing much. Okay? But what most people think when they hear strut tower bar, they think what it's doing for them. A lot of people only hear the bar part out of it. And they're like, well, I need some bars. So like, and I think they're getting it confused with sway bars. Now, a sway bar that attaches to the bottom of the car. That attaches your suspension points on each side. Okay, basically, either your control arm or your knuckle, depending on the car that you're using. Most Subarus, it's always to the control arms. And what that's doing is basically fighting your car's ability for one side of the suspension to move independently from the other side of the suspension. And so what that's going to do is try to keep the car as flat as possible when turning left and right. That is the simplest way I can put this. Okay. And by doing that, depending on how they're set up and the sizing of it, going up or down from your stock sizing, it's going to essentially try to keep the car flatter. Now, there's some things you can do by maybe increasing the rear sway bar on a car that's understeering. So putting a larger sway bar or maybe an adjustable sway bar with it turned up more. The car late corner will tend to be less pushy. It will understeer a little bit less. It is doing that by trying to fight the car's ability to kind of lean over on the suspension, and therefore there may not actually be as much traction, but since it's braking in the rear more than the front, the car will rotate more. And in a lot of cases, that may be the thing that you need to get the car to rotate, and you can find some time there. So
It has a clear benefit because it changes what was already there.
yeah, so there is, but it definitely changes something. If a strut tower bar isn't going to change much at all, if you feel it, it'd be a miracle. Okay.
Okay, I got a counterpoint for you.
Okay.
The S209 came with rear draw stiffeners, which is, granted, it's more than 2 points of contact, but apparently it did something. The engineers were adamant about putting that in.
Yes. That sure is cool. They put in a lot of really small things. It sure is. That's awesome. I'm willing to believe that you could put a pro driver in the car, okay, with those and without those, and with nothing else changed, okay, and the pro driver will not be able to tell if they're there or not. And I'm even willing to believe that the weight saved by not having them on is more beneficial than having them on.
Okay.
Now, you might be able to feel, maybe it'll pull a little vibration out. Maybe there's some long-term effects from that maybe there's a conversation worth having. But over a single lap, I think we're really getting into the fine details. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
Um,
we got a 20-year-old mod that doesn't really apply anymore versus sway bars, which are real. All right, what's next?
sway bars function. Okay. Now I do want to make there's some other caveats to this too. Okay. The older the car gets, now let's go back to a GC. A GC, you may actually feel a sway bar, a strut bar, if it's a proper strut bar. Those JDM titanium nicer ones that had the really wide feet at the end. Those the GC chassis compared to even the GD is significantly floppier, and bracing does do something. Okay, old 90s Hondas, it's something you could feel. It just doesn't apply to the newer cars as much. Here's what I will tell you though. There is no bling factor for putting on fender braces. This is a lost thing that should come back. Every chassis
Huh.
fender braces work, especially on the older cars. The three well, there's Randy's car in the chat showing off his super sick titanium or carbon bar, and that bar does work. But the fender braces, so they're actually under your fenders, and Subaru puts kind of a chintzy stamped steel one in there, but there's aftermarket companies who used to make them. GT Spec was my favorite. I think Ultra Racing is still making them, and then there was this Russian company called Keen or whatever was making them. Those fender braces, they work, especially on the older cars. That is an immediate, you will feel it difference, especially on turn-in. So not all bracing is crap. And again, the X brace for the rear, especially on the GD chassis, was something you felt. It made a difference.
Fender braces are still a thing, let's say in the VA or the VB chassis. I'm
Uh,
surprised.
it's not going to be as effective as they were in the old cars, but it's definitely something. If you were hell bent on bracing, that bracing makes sense. So
Okay.
that's my 2 cents. But again, strut tower bars versus sway bars. Sway bars, you're probably getting them confused. I think a lot of people do. And those who are listening to this, I tend to look at the people who are actually going out of the way to listen to this, or are in our chat right now. You are looking for enlightenment, therefore you are already ahead. Okay? You're
Yeah.
you're you're already ahead, and you're already trying to like learn and improve. If you see people out there talking about, my VA WRX or STI, and I put a strut tower bar on and the car feels so much better, feel free to argue with them. Okay, it is up to us, those who are trying to improve the world, to do this. Okay, so you have to go out into the disaster that is social media and try to be a pillar of enlightenment. I task you all with this. So this is if we can change one person's mind, it's worth it. All right. The next thing. This is
Next.
Randy wants to hear this one. Okay. The amount of people who go, I want to improve my braking ability, and hit me up for drilled or slotted rotors, specifically drilled rotors, is too damn high.
Yes, it is.
Okay? It's too damn high. All right. When the two things that are going to improve your braking performance more than anything are going to be A, pads, and B, tires. These are the two things that have by far the largest effect on your braking performance. It is not if you feel that your pads are getting too hot. Okay? Putting a different rotor on there is not going to fix that. Especially when it comes to drilled rotors. Drilled rotors are awful. A drilled steel rotor is not the answer. And anybody who would like to argue with that, my email is dewey@iagperformance.com. Feel free to send me something and tell me how wrong I am. I will argue with Subaru directly, but the only reason that those are on the car is because they are aesthetically pleasing. The the reason drilled rotors were a thing was back in the hizzy, when your dad or grandpa was racing. Brake pads had asbestos in them and other crap inside of the pads. What would happen is when they got really hot, they would gas. Okay. So they would let off gas, and then the pad itself would not make proper contact with the rotor. So the way to get around this is they needed a way to relieve the gas. That is where drilling the rotors came from. Modern pads do not have asbestos and do not gas. That's not going to happen. So your best bet, if you want to improve braking, is going to be get a better pad. Or get better tires. Or both. Now, with that stated, once you get better pads and better tires, you're going to create more heat. And again, the answer is not the rotors. If it's getting hot and you're getting brake fade, after you have good pads and good tires, it's probably your brake fluid. Okay? Get some better brake fluid.
But Dewey, you can't see these mods.
You can't, I know it. It just isn't going to bring the... I want you to understand there's a theme going on here. Okay? There's a theme. We're going to get to that in the end, but you're picking up on the theme already. I'm proud of you. I'm proud you're already picking up on the theme.
Thanks, buddy.
If you guys aren't picking up on the theme yet, let's get on that theme. All right. The next thing, I get this all the time too. And this, to people's defense, not everybody's a mechanic. Not everybody's had their shifter mechanism apart. Older 5-speeds and 6-speeds. Okay, so older transmissions, this is mostly a thing that's going to happen in the 2014 and older WRXs and STIs. All of them. Okay. The shifter will start getting very floppy. Okay, it'll be very vague on where the gear is. It's not a very... The shift gates tend to, even if it's in gear, the shifter will flop around a lot. Okay, so what people will do is they're like, okay, it needs shifter bushings, and or I feel like it's moving around a lot. I need a short shifter, and it will shorten that up. Therefore, I should be able to find these gates easier. The reality of it is that's not the truth, and which sucks because technically what you need to replace in this situation is a bushing. And it is within your shifter assembly of sorts. It is not what is commonly referred to as a shift bushing. Shift bushings, if everything is working correctly, will make shifting more direct. But when you're talking about the Subaru aftermarket, Cosmos here, shift bushings tend to refer to the basically the piece that is holding the bottom of the shifter in place, so then the linkage itself can articulate as needed. So putting those in a little stiffer versions of those bushings in will keep everything where it needs to be if everything's functioning correctly, and it will make your shifting more direct. But it won't fix the floppy shifter problem. That has to do with linkage bushings. And if you have an older WRX, you start to feel this a lot, or older Imprezas that are using a 5-speed, older Subarus just in general, they use a shift linkage, and within that like U-joint of the shift linkage, those bushings will will go bad after a while, especially now that they're getting of age. They'll go bad real quick. And the shifter will be super floppy. If you were to just put in a new bushings, if you can take your unit apart, or B, you get one of the updated ones that you can take the U-joint piece apart and put new bushings in, drastically change the way the shifter feels. Subaru shifters actually are extraordinarily direct and feel great. The linkage-based ones. The cable ones, sorry guys, the 2015 plus WRX guys, they aren't fantastic. There's things you can do. You can get different bushings for them. You can make them feel okay. They ain't ever gonna feel like the old ones. The biggest company out there, that my favorite company out there that's making bushings for this, is actually Turn-In Concepts. They make this thing called the Holy Shift Kit that replaces all of it, including the shifter bushings.
That's a great kit.
And it's great. And I tell you what, if you miss a shift after you put a Holy Shift Kit in your car, it's your fault. It ain't the transmission. It is definitely your fault. A lot of times too, once you do the shift linkage bushings and the proper shifter bushings, you may find yourself, especially with an STI, even the WRX though, you don't need a short shifter. The problem with a short shifter is it's physically going to get shorter. The shift effort is going to go up quite a bit. And it's, yeah, you don't have to move your arm as far, or the shift action itself, you don't have to move as far, but you have to move your arm farther to get to the shifter, which you lose time there. And the shift effort's a lot higher. You tend to push harder, and you tend to eat synchros a lot faster that way. Most people find that the stock shift arm feels fantastic after you redo all of the bushings. And in some cases, my favorite shifter still to this day is the Cartboy Tallboy, which I think the only place you can get it is Turn-In Concepts, or there's a couple of vendors out there who get them, but the Tallboy is awesome. Basically, it's a modified short shifter, but it's actually slightly longer than the stock STI shifter. But since it's using the kind of the geometry of the short throw, it's longer, but kind of maintains that same throw as the stock shifter, so it puts it closer to the wheel. It's really easy to get to. Everything is super direct. It's mega simple. It's totally reasonable in price. By far my favorite shifter. Drew carries them. Tallboy shifter's where it's at.
To use it. Tallboy shifter. Tallboy
shifters, what's up? I can't stress it enough. That by far my favorite. If you've got a STI base 6-speed, Tallboy's what's up. I like that significantly more than I even like the aftermarket shifters that are out there that replace all of the linkage.
So short shifters versus bushings, I kind of knew about for what gives you a better feel, but linkage bushings versus just shift bushings, I was not aware of until today.
Well, now you are. That's what's going to make everything feel significantly more direct. And the ones that are up at the transmission on that U-joint are the ones that really matter. Those are the ones that really, really matter. I don't think you're that quiet, but I don't know. What's everybody else? How's everybody else feeling? Is he quiet or not? Let me hear it.
I was quiet. I was quiet.
Randy says you're fine.
Last episode, I was listening to it in my own car, and it was quiet. Okay. Vote says everything's fine. It's just one person's being weird. All right.
Dewey's loud.
All right. So what's the next one?
All right. So the next one. Somebody wants to keep themselves in their seats better. Okay. So in their mind, they go, especially some of the STI seats that have holes through them, they feel they need to get harnesses. Then they have to figure out where they're going to attach these harnesses, and they purchase a harness bar. Harness bars are awful.
They're also dangerous.
They're ungodly dangerous. Do not do a harness bar. If you need to attach harnesses to something, you get a rear section cage. Okay, I'd even rather you get a bolt-in Cusco cage than running harness bar. Harness bars are complete crap. They will not hold you in a crash. They will bend, and then the harness doesn't do anything, and you'll flop all over the damn car. Harness bars are awful. I don't care who made it. They're not a great idea. I don't recommend them for anybody. Harness bars are not an option. What you really should do is get yourself a rear cage. There's a few companies that make them. I'm not a huge fan of Cusco / Safety 21 or whatever they call their odd brand. What is the name of that company that does the bolt-in cages that are pretty decent?
I was muted. Auto Power?
Auto Power, yes. Auto Power is great. An Auto Power rear bolt-in or weld-in cage is really the answer. Are you going to lose the viability of your rear seats for the most part? Yes, you are. That's what happens when you need cages. Okay. If you feel that you need more support, you got a few different ways of going about this. One, you can put in some more supportive seats. Okay. Subaru is really big on putting in seats for Americans. Okay. You could get yourself a set of fairly nice Recaro, Recaros with some larger bolstering, and no, they're not going to be cheap. You could also get a set of JDM seats that tend to have larger bolstering that are set up for Japanese people. That might not fit all of us, and unfortunately, because it is a JDM seat, the height adjustment might be a little goofy from side to side, but that may work out for you. But if you feel that you need to take the step to where you need to harness yourself in, you really should be looking into some sort of bucket seat situation. And with that, I'm not a huge fan of running a 3-point belt with a bucket. I would much rather hear you.
I agree.
If you're to do that, I'd rather you put in a rear cage. And you have rear cages that stick far enough back to where you could keep your OEM seat in, okay? And you could run the 3-point when you're driving around on the street, and your head wouldn't be anywhere near the cage. And then when you do go to the track, the night before, you swap all your stuff over for your harnesses and everything else, and your bucket seat, and you run that. That would be how I would really prefer people that are trying to do double duty with their cars do that. It can't stress it enough. Harness bars are not the answer. So if you're like, I need to put harnesses in to strap myself in, it's no bueno. And trying to stick a harness in and then attach it to the floor, not a thing. Trying to stick a harness in and then attach it to the rear seatbelt mounting, not a thing. If you do harnesses wrong and you do get into an accident, if it's attached to a harness bar, like we already talked about, there's a good chance that the bar's just going to bend. You're going to flop around. If you attach it to the wrong place in the car at the wrong angle, you could compress your spine. In some situations, you could die. If you're tall like you and I are, it's not an option for us in any way.
It's dangerous.
Yep, super dangerous. Do not do that. All right. What do we got next?
More camber versus roll center.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of people, this is more of a track-oriented one, but it hit me while I was talking about some other stuff. You'll get people who will come in, they'll have coilovers or whatever, and be like, man, like I keep trashing the outside of my tires. I need more camber. And don't get me wrong, more camber would probably help a bit, but a lot of people, they end up maxing their stuff out and can't figure out what's going on. They're still trashing the outside of their tires. Autocross or whatever they happen to be doing. Maybe even they put some super low just springs on. You know what I mean? And they think they need more camber. When really what's going on is they probably have jacked up the roll center. Okay, so what's actually happening is when they're turning into the corner and their suspension compresses, instead of them gaining camber like they should, what's happening is the more they compress it, the more camber they lose, and it's rolling over onto the outside of the tire. So they might be going out there with, say, 3 degrees of camber, okay? But during compression, they're down to like 1.5 degrees or like 1 or nothing. Who knows how bad it could be. Can't stress it enough, my people. Okay? Understand your geometry. And before you start lowering the car, start understanding how roll center works. So what they
Hold
actually
on, hold on,
probably
hold
need,
on.
what?
So geometry means what happens to the angle of the wheels when you
Hmm.
go through the suspension movement. So from fully
Yes.
compressed to fully up in the air.
Your suspension does not travel straight up and down.
Right.
Okay, it has a curve to it, and it has a curve to it for a reason. You go around a corner, you don't want a ton of camber when you're driving in a straight line. You want as much camber as you can get when you travel through the corner, and all the weight is on that tire. You want as much contact patch as you can get. So they design that into the suspension, but when you over lower the suspension, especially on a McPherson strut style car like we have in the front, you can really screw that up without lowering it hardly at all. We're talking like inch and a half. You start running into roll center problems. So when you think you may need more camber, you probably do need more camber, but it's because you're losing camber. If you fix the problem of you losing camber, that will actually fix the problem. So first off, you need to understand, is my roll center messed up or not? How do you figure that out? It's pretty simple. If the car is sitting on the ground flat, with weight on it, if your front control arms are past 90 degrees, okay, so the insides are lower than the outsides, your roll center's jacked up. And the fastest way to fix this is something like a roll center correction kit, either from White Line. There's a bunch of different companies that make them, but basically it's an extended ball joint and an extended tie rod that will push the outside of your control arm down. You need to keep them at 90 degrees or lower, if at all possible. You may have to get a little more extreme with it. Maybe you got to go to drop knuckles. Maybe you have to go to aftermarket control arms. It's a lot of different things you may have to do with that. Hard Race, another brand, makes roll center adjustment ball joints. But roll center is one of the most neglected things. Especially, it's unreal how many guys will go to the track. They'll be new to the track, but they'll have like coilovers and wheels and tires and a bunch of other stuff, and they're just shredding the outside of their tires, and they've already got like 3.5 degrees of camber, in already dialed into their coilovers. Well, it's
Right.
probably due to the fact that the roll center's messed up. Now, a quick fix to this is you don't have to spend any money really other than an alignment, is raise your car. Like if you have adjustable coilovers and you're overlowered, adjust them back higher and the car will immediately ride better. One of the best places to look at just high grip, good proper track alignments on all-wheel drive cars, Evos and STIs, is look at Grid Life Street Class. Look at a lot of those cars, they are not overlowered. Like look at Josh but dude, my brain is just turned off.
Josh Halka?
Josh Halka, perfect example of a car to look at. That car is not overloaded in any way. And that car handles extremely well.
And Joe as well, Joe Milky.
Joe Milky, another example. That car is not overlowered. If you're lower than those guys, you're too low. So that's very.
But Dewey, it looks cool.
It looks sick. So let's have a conversation about what all of these things had in common. Every single one of these things that we talked about today looks really fucking cool. But there is an alternative to this thing that looks really damn cool that you probably can't see or isn't as blingy. Okay? With the exception of maybe the cage. This is where you have to ask yourself, what is the reason I am actually doing this modification? And I run into this all the time. Okay, where they want to justify something because it does a particular thing, but really they just like the way it looks. That's okay. If you want a strut tower bar because it just looks damn cool, get a strut tower bar. That's cool. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You can put stickers on it, look shiny under there. Sweet. Whatever. Cool, man.
Hold on now. Are you being real? This is
No,
not the
I am.
Dewey that I
I'm being
know.
real. I gotta be. I
Come on.
if it's what you want, brake rotors, I'm gonna make a little bit of an exception for. Okay, I'm not drilled rotors. If it's a steel drilled rotor, you're never gonna hear me be okay with it. But DBA 4000s with some slots in it, is it gonna help you a ton stop faster? No. Is it gonna wear your pads out a little bit quicker? Probably. But does it gotta look cool? Yeah, it looks cool. Gotta let that slide.
All right.
Okay. And cool guy shift knobs that sit a little lower and whatever. If you like the way that feels and you're just hell bent on the way that looks, or if you're about that dildo shifter life, I mean,
It's fine.
you do you, okay? You do you. But don't sit here and try to tell me, like, this strut tower bar, and you'll hear this at parking lot meets or somebody running around on the internet, that this strut tower bar changed the way my car handles. No, it didn't. It just didn't. I'm sorry, man.
All right. This is the Dewey I know after all.
This is it didn't. But if you have it because you like it, okay, and it's your car and you really just like the way it looks, that's fine. Radiator caps. There's another great one. That's a great one. A lot of people don't really understand how the radiator caps even work. They just want really cool looking radiator caps. And a lot of people put the wrong radiator cap on, because you have on Subarus, you have two radiator caps. You have the turbo Subarus, you have the upper and the lower. And a lot of people put the wrong radiator cap on. They think they're the same thing and they're not. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm never going to be okay with drilled rotors, okay? And I'm never going to be okay with a harness bar, ever. You're never going to hear that. And I'm super down with badass time attack camber, okay? Boogie runs almost 4 degrees, all right? But the very next thing I'm going to see if I see badass sweet camber is I'm going to get under, I'm probably going to lay down on the front of your car and I'm going to see where your control arms sit. Okay, if your geometry doesn't match it, I'm going to be pissed. All right. Another one that we could add to this that just kind of came to mind. Splitters. People talking about aero.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, splitters and people not understanding how a effing splitter works. So people who are getting these like show splitters that only go around the front lip, essentially is what it is. It's just a straight front lip. And it doesn't actually travel under the front of the car for any amount of distance. It's doing nothing. Oh, yes, and as Josh would say, at a positive angle of attack. That's also great too.
So it's tilted upward.
It's tilted upwards. Yeah, those are great.
You're creating lift.
All that aero. And again, if you like the way it looks, if you did it because you're like, man, I just really think it looks cool, don't try to argue that it's for a performance reason. It's not. And that's okay. Just own it. Just own it. Okay?
If you can't stand on it, it's not a splitter.
But 100%
agree.
Yeah, if you can't stand on it, it's not a splitter. And if it doesn't travel at least past the front area of your bumper towards your wheel well, if it doesn't at least get to there, it's not a splitter. It's a cosmetic piece. It's a splatter. You can't stand on mine, it's a splitter. Yours is on there pretty good, though.
All right, dude, you got to wrap it up.
We could stand on yours, I just wouldn't.
I gotta roll. So signing off now. If you guys keep talking,
Well, if you gotta go, you gotta go. Hey, thanks for sliding by, buddy. It's been fun.
absolutely. I will see you next week.
Yep. Later, man.
Adios.
All right. I'm open for suggestions. I'm gonna go through the comment section that we put in the IAG Insiders, where I asked the question. Um, Maybe some of the comments in here were interesting. So the owner of TSS Fab, so William Manuel Timmons, TSS Fab, um, posted about strut tower bars, and he's like, it's called a roll cage. Essentially, a roll cage makes a strut tower bar pointless if you build it correctly or you're allowed to run the bars to the strut tower. I'm not. In Street Mod, you are not. So strut tower bar may actually serve some function there, but most of the off-the-shelf ones don't do much of anything anyway. They just look cool. I think we covered pretty much all of this, though. Front mounts on stock turbo cars. Yeah, I kind of gotta agree with that to a certain degree. Yeah. So a stock turbo car, and this is talking about EJs, okay? If we're talking about FAs, there's a completely different argument. The turbo's down low, the piping doesn't really get any longer. A front mount makes a whole lot of sense on an FA, okay? But on an EJ with the turbo way up top, sticking a front mount on a stock turbo car, you'd probably be better served by sticking with your stock turbo or stock intercooler if you've got like an STI or a decent intercooler already. Or if you've got a WRX, there are better options. Aftermarket top mount intercoolers for your stock turbo are probably your best option. Biggest reason, and I'm just going to oversimplify this all to hell, but for your turbo to really do anything and build any serious boost, it has to fill all of that intercooler piping. And if you're going all the way from the top near the firewall, all the way down through the fender, around the front, then back around all the way up to around to your throttle body, that is a lot of piping. If you lay that all out, I think we figured that out one time to be it was like 15 feet of piping. It's a lot that you have to fill for anything to happen. So really what you're going to do is murder your throttle response. And there are significantly better options. Especially if you got a plastic manifold. If you got a plastic manifold, because of where your throttle body sits, because it's kind of off to the side, not centered, you have the ability to run the verticooler, and the verticooler is awesome. Process West made such a cool unit. Run the verticooler, then you're not sticking this giant cooler in front of your radiator. There's now let's go off into an aftermarket turbo though. Once you go on to some form of aftermarket turbo, 20G or larger style turbo, anything Cobb 20G and up, a front mount intercooler makes more sense. The turbo can move enough air in a very short period of time to where if there is a throttle response issue, it's more than made up for by the cooling efficiencies of a front mount intercooler. Now, again, you have to balance that with I have this giant core in front of my radiator, so it may not make sense for you. And if you have a Process West verticooler, I am telling you, dude, stick with that as long as you can. That setup's so cool. But once you go to an aftermarket turbo, it starts making way more sense. Can't stress that enough. LH44, we got a question here. I'll ask you this. What's more important to you? Winning in a championship or doing it in a Subaru? As in, would you abandon a Subaru for the sake of winning? That is a great question. That's a great question. I love me some winning, but everything I have, I owe to Subarus. And honestly, it's just sweeter when you win in a Subaru. I could get in a Corvette and probably for way cheaper than what I've done with everything with Boogie, with a whole lot less issues, win. But then you're winning with a Corvette. You're just that guy in a Corvette. I don't know. That's really a tough one. I don't think you're ever gonna see me abandon Subaru. I'd rather do it, and I'd rather do as much as I can with a Subaru than win. Like, honestly, it'd be so easy for me to just cookie cutter what the 2 Supra guys are doing right now and just go fight them heads up, but it's way more entertaining to do it in a '90s shitbox. And I love this community so much that I'd rather fight tooth and nail for this community, even though in some situations I'm at a disadvantage, um, than abandon this community for whatever it may be. It would take a lot to get me out of this community. A lot. And at this point in my life, I'm so used to being the underdog with these situations that it'd feel weird not being the underdog. Um, just I can't. I want. It's so much better in a Subaru. It's so much better in a Subaru, and it's for better or for worse. I've loved this community since I became a part of it, and honestly, before I even owned the damn car, but 2002, 2001 time frame is when I started, getting into Nasiak and all of that noise. And I've been messing around and being a part of this community ever since. And everything I have in my life is due to this community. You know, uh, my job, my wife, my kids, me talking to you guys, what I do on my free time, half of my clothing, you know, it's all Subaru based in one way or another. I don't think I can walk away from that. So I'd rather die on this hill than live on another, if that makes sense. And I've often thought about where would I be if it wasn't for Subarus. I don't know. I really don't know. Um, at this point, I'd probably be in a Porsche. I think, and I really want to get a 918 or a 918, sorry, 981 Boxster S. Bad. Um, but I want that for different things, you know. I tried in other groups to try to be a part of their I got into minis for a while, and don't get me wrong, the mini community is really cool, but it ain't Subarus. The Volkswagen community was kind of close. I was getting into Corrados pretty big, met a bunch of cool people within that community. That was pretty fun. But again, it ain't the same thing. It ain't the same thing. Yeah, we're not gonna touch that one, producer Jordan. That one's let's not. Josh, get an Alpha 4C instead. Yeah, no. How's that for an answer? No. No. Um um Back to LH44, which I'm assuming Lewis Hamilton 44 or whatever. He says, I mean, you could argue Boogie is probably more expensive to run than the Supras per year. It is. There's really no denying that. And we are running at a disadvantage. We just are. Like, those engines are stout as shit. They get 285s. Those bodies are freakishly aerodynamic, and all they have to do is look at what Jackie figured out and copy and paste, and then make small tweaks from there. Everything I'm doing is the first time. Like, don't get me wrong, I can talk to the Aussies and get a lot from them, but what they're allowed to do within their classes compared to us are different. So we have to make our time differently. I definitely can get hints. And we got a huge community to draw on who've all done awesome different things, but we're the bleeding edge of street modified. And we can't even look at what cars were doing a few years ago in Global Time Attack because we're so far separated from them now too. We got nothing to draw on, so like we're it. we're the bleeding edge of what you can do with this platform within this rule set, or something near this rule set. So it's hard, and it's going to come with, it gets better and better. What I can say is whoever comes after me, it would behoove them to learn from what we have done, and go from there. Take what we have learned with what we've done with our car and take that information and build upon that. I would love nothing more than to have another GC out in street mod fighting the fight, built to the same level our car is. We could share data and it would go a long way. The Supra guys are sharing data and figuring out where they can go faster. And it's huge. This is why in Grid Life GLTC, all of those vet guys, don't get me wrong, that platform's really good. It isn't the platform. The platform is not the reason those guys are so dominant. The reason they're dominant is because they're all sharing data and working together to go faster. Okay, and the same thing with ASM with his fleet of S2000s and BRZ FRSs. They're sharing data and figuring out how to go faster. So, yeah, I would the more the merrier. You think you'd need to partner with somebody like Varus to get more comprehensive aero package? You're right. Boogie is at a massive disadvantage from an aero standpoint. There's no denying that. We have by far the most rudimentary aero in the top 10 in the class. It's by far the most basic aero you got. And would partnering with somebody like Varus or Spage or somebody else out here help? Absolutely. And the unfortunate reality is we spend a lot of our resources running around trying to fix other things, but there's some low-hanging fruit that we can work on, and we do have some partners that do help us, whether it be Professional Awesome and those guys over there, and AJ Hartman's been really cool about telling us stuff, and so is Nine Lives Racing. They've all been super supportive, and they drop hints wherever they can. And we're kind of proof that you can go really damn fast with the basics. But would like some hardcore CFD and badass carbon pieces go a long way on the car? Absolutely. Absolutely. And no, we don't need a sponsorship deal with said people. That's another example that would fit into our topic today. Would be, crazy ass aerodynamics trying to say that, I'm doing this for aero purposes when the car's hanging out in, parking lots and whatever. And all of it's really ill designed. It's not. What's the deal with the 255 rule though? That's a killer. Honestly, it is dumb, as Josh just said. It is dumb at this point. But that is a remnant of a time long forgotten. And it's a remnant of the old red line time attack rules. And back when 200 treadwear tires were very much 200 treadwear, nowhere near the grip they are today. And the two-wheel drive cars actually needed the extra width to make them competitive with the all-wheel drive cars. It was the other way around. Nowadays, the 255 thing screws us in so many ways. But it is class is the reason I have to run the 255s versus the the 285s that they run. I would kill to run some 285s. That would alter this car in so many ways. But it is what it is. It doesn't seem like it'd be a ton, 255 to 285, but it is a massive amount when you actually look at the tires. In just tire temps spreading out tire temps alone would be huge. We could probably right now with a 255, it's one really good hot lap, and then the second lap is very compromised. Okay. Which is one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of AO52s. Because you get one lap out of them. The RE71 RSs, I could basically get 2 laps out of them. But if we had 285s, we'd probably get another lap out of it, no problem, maybe 2, before we had to let them cool down. Yeah, the Nankang CRS is a good example of, these quote unquote top level 200 treadwear tires are all a joke. They're not 200 treadwear. RE71 RSs, AO52s, Nankang CRSs, whatever that new tire is that's been banned from everywhere. They're not 200 treadwear. They're not even remotely 200 treadwear. Vitour P1s, yes, that's it. And they're also not 255 millimeter. You're right. 255 has become questionable. Also, like how a width measurement has become how a width measurement has become so questionable is beyond me. Treadwear is something that's tested in-house and they claim whatever they want, but a width measurement is a width measurement. Tire wars are always going to happen. Like you just said, it's cool that manufacturers take grassroots motorsports seriously enough to play these games, though. On the flip side of that, it has taken something that should be really simple and made it really difficult. It's unless you're in the know, it's very hard to navigate the current 200 treadwear tire. There's a million different 200 treadwear tires out there, and they're all drastically different. I guess to be fair to the manufacturers, treadwear doesn't necessarily mean grip, but it's treadwear also. These 200 treadwear tires are definitely not. I wish they would standardize treadwear also. And the biggest reason I would like that is it would in some ways take tires a little bit out of the equation. But I can tell you right now, if they did standardize treadwear, the all-wheel drive cars would become stronger, but the times overall, we would have a very hard time matching those times from before 200 treadwear became an actual 200 treadwear. Turtle, somebody new. Welcome to the chat, buddy. How you doing? Hey, new to all this, just getting connected. What things have you mentioned so far regarding things you need? Okay, well, we already kind of went through that. We're kind of in, I don't know if we want to call it garbage time or whatever. Here's what I am going to tell you. We upload this entire conversation as a podcast after. This is all being recorded right now. And you can listen to this whenever you want. And you can subscribe to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And it'll let you know when they pop up. So if you can't make the live feed in time to kind of participate while we were doing it, you can definitely listen through and hear what we said. But we've got quite a few different things in there, and I'd love for you to listen to it and let me know what you think. And we'll get that up. So if you just go to Google and type in IAG Thursday Thing, pop right to the top. And you've got 2 ways. Spotify, we're really trying to focus on Spotify right now because that's where the majority of our listeners are. But Apple Podcasts work the same way too. Dewey, please upload all your onboards of Boogie this year. I'm gonna try, but man, it's I wish it was easier to do. It's just a pain in the ass. And I'm trying. I'll try to upload more onboards. I am sorry. I'm trying. I promise you I'm trying. But yeah, I think we're gonna call it there unless anybody's got any other questions. This was a good one. Need a foot cam, man. My feet are. I'm scared to show my foot cam. But I agree with you. Maybe we'll show it sometime. That's just gonna show you how much I need to work on shit. I don't know. Maybe I'll impress myself. You get the footage. I can do the editing for it if it's something. Hey, I'm not against. What I need is somebody more to keep keep everything charged and turn it on at the right time. Like I am so like frazzled with everything that's going on. Yes, we need boogie content. You know what? Here's what I want you to do. Mr. Lewis Hamilton, which is what I'm just going to call you from now on. Lewis, you need to go and you need to rattle the trees in our other social areas about needing boogie content. And when you see boogie content on IAG's social stuff, you need to share it. And that's how we're going to get more boogie content. Okay? So like every time you people are posting stuff up, engines, whatever, on our social, say, hey, we need some more boogie content. Drop a comment. That goes a long way. Okay. And then if you see boogie content up, share it and comment on it. It's huge for us. Absolutely huge. Post it on our YouTube. The more you interact with it with saying we need boogie content, the more boogie content you're gonna get. They're gonna do what people want. So you have to tell them you want it. Yeah, producer Jordan, you nailed it right on the head. At the track, nothing goes right, especially lately. Nothing has been going right. So I haven't had a chance to like focus on the little things. I'm having to focus on putting out fires versus like fixing small stuff or doing the stuff we want to do. It's doing the stuff we have to do, aka putting a trans in, or why is the car hopping like hell, or all sorts of shit. Why we have no boost, whatever, a million different things. Yeah, fires. So you get it. It's lots of stuff going on. That video is a ways down. Once the dust is starting to settle, though. Okay, we're gonna be able to do some cool stuff. No, I'm with you, Lewis, on it doesn't need to be polished video or whatever. Raw GoPro footage, totally understand. We're going to try to work more on that. I agree, I need to get more of that out there. The problem is, like, having GoPros and shit ready to go is rough. We have good footage from Mid-Ohio. I just don't have any of the full laps up. So maybe we'll try to get something. Fire bad, less fire. Yes. The Supers seem very competitive this year. Do you think oh yeah. Look, man. Look, I don't want to sit here and make excuses, okay? And that's not me. We lost at Mid-Ohio. We got second place. We're half second behind. But here's the reality. We were only a half second behind. And if we wouldn't have thrown that power steering belt on that lap, I probably would have put a full second up off of my time. So they would have been a half second behind. Okay. On a car that really wasn't right. I was almost a full second up on my fastest time when that power steering belt threw. And then the car wasn't 100% correct. And we were only a half second behind. I do believe we can beat them. Okay, this isn't like it was a few years back where we were 3 or 4 seconds off of Jackie Ding when he was on kill. Okay, or even 2 seconds off. We're half a second back with a car that's not correct. We had a car that was correct back in the day. Like, it felt as good as it was going to feel for what it was. And I was getting a decent amount out of the car. And we were still 2 seconds off. This is a whole new world. This car is significantly faster than it used to be. And to be perfectly honest, nothing against the Superboys, they haven't got any faster. So I truly, truly believe we can beat them. Unrelated note, I can't be the only one that thought these Supers were trash right at the beginning, and now they're these beasts. Yes, I was in there. I couldn't believe Jackie ditched the S2000 for a Supra. And look what he ended up doing with it. He proved us all wrong. We were all wrong. I mean, I'll eat crow for that. I was wrong. So, yeah, definitely wrong. Dash camera that's hardwired to car's power would be goated for this. I'm not against that. It's just hard to set up. Josh, do you think all the enhanced M-Tron stuff working yet? Still not. I'm still on the pneumatic gate. We need some time to stick the thing on the dyno and just play for a few hours. And Graham's been busy. We've been busy. We're trying to put together some other stuff. We have some small aero bits we're trying to put together for the event coming up. So Road America, we're trying to put together some small stuff here, and we have other things we got to sort out, and then we can start really hitting that hard. We're very, very excited to start playing with that stuff, though. Graham is goofing around with that GR Corolla a bunch. I'll say one of the big reasons the Supers are so competitive is because the aero trumps anything else in the competition. You're right. They're aerodynamically a very, very, very good car. And our car is aerodynamically a very, very, very bad car. But it is what it is. That doesn't mean we can't find speed in other ways. It's time attack. We just got to dig. But you're right. And what helps is they developed something really good for Jackie's car. And even though it wasn't 100% legal, what they're using now, they took a lot of that data and tweaked what they had on Jackie's car and, made it legal. And it works really well. So we'll get there. Lots of time attack talk on the end of this. That's fun. Not sure what next week's going to be because there's going to be a lot of traveling all over God's creation. We may or may not be able to do this live. We may or may not be able to do it at all. I'm not sure. We're going to try. Has the aero package on Boogie changed much? In the front end, it has. In the rear, it has not. It's the same wing I've been running since day one. The splitter diffusers, how we attach a bunch of the stuff that's changed. How we seal up the front has changed a decent amount. We've added canards and some small stuff. What we really need to do is skirts, and that's next. Went from wood to, we're not aluminum right now. We're Alumilite. Honestly, I went from Alumilite, different thicknesses of Alumilite, to wood, and back to Alumilite, and I'm not 100% sure I'm totally sold on the Alumilite. The wood still was really good. Ain't nothing wrong with that organic composite. Wood's cheaper, and it's nice and thick. Yeah, splitter is heavy. Very heavy. Which is why, like, if it's made of wood, it doesn't really matter. It sits so low on the car, that the extra, on the high side, 20 pounds doesn't mean anything. All right. Well, I think we're going to call it. This has been a fun one. Thanks, guys. If you can, after I post the links up on my wall or wherever, I'll edit the post that some of you guys have found this on. Please share it. Do me a solid. For God's sake, share this damn thing. It means the world to me. And we'll get this posted up. All right, folks. Hope you had a good time and maybe accidentally learned something. If you could do us a solid and please subscribe. And I can't stress this enough. Share. Share the link to the podcast. Tell people about the podcast. Come on the podcast. It's we the more the merrier, and the more people we have, the more guests we can have, the more fun we can have with this. We want to make this a giant happy family. So thanks, guys.